What's up, guys? It's Samantha Collier from the Legalstreamer show. I am a social media specialist for lawyers, and this is the second show. Today, I am interviewing one of my most favorite people on the internet. He is also considered one of the most famous lawyers on the internet. He has so many accolades, I just can't even, say them all. It's Mitch Jackson. He won the 2009 Trial Lawyer of the Year, and he has settled numerous multi-million-dollar lawsuits. Meet Mitch Jackson.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Hi, Samantha. Thanks for having me on today's show.
No problem. Thanks for coming. I'm super excited. I think this is our third episode, so it's fun to have you back.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I love the fact that you're showing other lawyers, you're showing other professionals how to embrace the digital platforms to share their message and to show their human side. And that's why I'm always here for you. I like what you're doing. You're doing good stuff.
You're awesome. And I was thinking about what we were going to talk about for our subject, and because I asked you to come on before we even had a subject, because I know you're awesome. And you really picked a subject that I've never heard a lawyer talk about before, and I've never even considered this, but I know I've asked you about it, is how lawyers can protect their online communities. And you suggested this. So, I mean, what do you do? I know you've done it, and I know I've actually paraphrased you before on the internet. So what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, look, what you do is you help lawyers and you show lawyers how to use social media to build their firms, to expand their sphere of influence, to increase profits when it's all said and done. And the reality is people don't really want to listen to lawyers talk about legal things on social media. That's not interesting to anybody. It's not even interesting to me, and I know it's not interesting to you. But I think what we can all agree with is the premise that we all need to protect our social media communities. We all need to make sure that we're helping each other do the right thing, protecting each other from all the bad guys and all the bad elements on social media. And this idea came to me, Samantha, and because of that, there's a way where I think lawyers and police officers can engage on social and help do all of that while at the same time showing their human side, building a brand, expanding their sphere of influence, and that will result in referrals coming to your law firm. So it's a great way to show the world who you are and how you can help other people do the right thing, and at the same time build your brand and build your business. And the short story behind this is we were having a neighborhood block party. It's a Friday night. It's the sun setting. We've got our barbecues pulled out in front. It's been a long week. I live on a great street. We are tight. And I think we have a formal neighborhood watch, although we're not really involved in that. But about 10 o'clock at night, one of my neighbor's children came walking down the street and said, "Hey, Mommy, there's a man leaving our garage with my brother's skateboard." And some Yes. And so we walked down 2 or 3 doors, and sure enough, here's a 16-year-old intoxicated high school student that was down the street at a party that decided he was going to take our friend's skateboard, wireless speakers. My friend happens to be a fire captain, so his fire captain jersey that was hanging in the garage, along with some other things. Long story short, this home was owned by a fire captain and an FBI agent. This kid picked the wrong house to decide to invite himself into. And what my takeaway was from that evening is that we're all watching out for each other. And we do that in our offline worlds. We watch out for our kids and our brothers and sisters and our significant others, people who we care for. Why doesn't that happen more often online in our social media communities? As a matter of fact, what I've noticed, and I've been online since 1996, our first website, on social media since day one. I love meeting people like you and everyone in your audience. This is the best way to engage. But what I have noticed is that on social media, people are very comfortable with turning the other way and looking away from the problems. I think they're worried about being called out. I think they're worried about becoming the center of attention with a group bullying effort. I don't know. But I've noticed the willingness of people to look the other way when there's wrongdoing taking place on social media. So I wrote an article about doing the right thing on social media, why it's okay to do that, why we all need to do that. And I think, Samantha, lawyers that get involved and do it the right way, and you have to go about it the right way, by showing our communities how we can protect each other. Well, that's how you build rapport. That's how you gain respect of your community, and that's how you help people. And I think that's how relationships are formed. And for me, it was just a natural transition from the offline world to the online world.
Hey, and Nancy Marilyn says hi. We both love Nancy. She's wonderful. And Ross, thanks you for joining. It's a pleasure to have you in here. And, I've had to deal, unfortunately, with online harassment. And a lot of the times I think it's just, being a girl or whatever it is. But I actually almost didn't go on to Periscope because of it, because there were so many comments and so many things. And it was actually Brian Fanzo that said, don't let that stop you. It's also just building an online set of videos. But when does it cross the line? Like you've actually made me feel so much better that there are things I can do, like there is something I can do if someone's harassing me, but where is that line?
Well, I think the line's pretty clear, and it probably has something to do with what I do for profession and my age, okay? I'm at the point where I just don't put up with bullshit.
Yeah.
And because of that, I have no problem with stepping up. Brian and I were in New York at Periscope Summit, and there were a group of people on stage who were sharing with us their stories about being trolled. And it touched Brian. It touched me. My wife was with us. It touched Lisa. And I then realized people need to be given the tools to deal with trolls. So Kim Garston and I did a show about how to deal with internet trolls. We shared resources. We shared cease and demand letters, templates. We shared the contact information of the major social media providers so that you, Samantha, can reach out to Twitter and Facebook and Blab and whoever else and share your concerns about the trolls. You put them on legal notice. We gave our audience the tools to deal with trolls. Yeah. And people were receptive and appreciative of us taking the time to do that. New relationships were formed, and as a lawyer, connections were made. And a good friend of ours, Nick Rishwain, who just joined the show of experts.com, I did a show yesterday with his t-shirt on. These types of relationships were formed and referrals take place. Nick's referred cases to us, we've referred cases to Nick, and it's because of these types of shows. So crossing the line, as a lawyer, I get the phone calls, I get the emails, I get the direct messages from victims. Yes. And what I've noticed over and over and over again is we're contacted constantly about online fraud and online theft. It's amazing to me how many people have contacted me about the same person who is consistently ripping off one person after another, people, Samantha, that you and I know. And it just got to the point where we need to expose the digital foxes so they can't get into the digital hen houses. Okay? Exactly. You have to step up and you have to speak out and don't turn your head. So we have online fraud and theft. We've got online bullying, harassment, and defamation. That's a big issue that I think happens all the time. People tweet and post without thinking. They destroy personal lives. They harm businesses, and that's not okay. We have a lot of distracted driving taking place online where people are using their smartphones while they're driving, okay? And, lives are being lost. 4,000 to 6,000 people a year are killed. 400 to 600,000 people a year are injured every second during daylight hours in the United States. 600,000 people are driving around with one of these in their hand while doing a live streaming show. Okay,
I can't believe that. It's so crazy.
What I can't believe is that people online in our social media communities are okay with that.
I know.
They tune into the show each day. They engage with these people while they're driving, and that's not okay. This is a very self-centered, reckless act that's taking place day after day after day. And I'm not talking about the occasional hiccup. No. You're waiting for a call from your daughter that you're picking up at school. I get that. I'm talking about people, and you know who I'm talking about, who do this every single day. What we need to do is we need to we need to stop following them. We need to stop supporting them. And pretty soon, if they don't get the message, there won't be anybody to broadcast to. But that's a big problem. And then the other big problem I've seen are child predators, people taking advantage of the ease of accessing the internet to, initiate inappropriate relationships with other people for whatever reason. Oftentimes, they're committing crimes. So what lawyers can do, and a great way for a lawyer to market himself or herself using social media, is to give your audience tools to deal with all of these problems. And you don't want to lecture people. What you want to do is share resources, educate. And what will happen is you'll start branding yourself as the person who cares. And by the way, you genuinely need to care.
Yeah.
A marketing ploy. It can't be a gimmick that you're doing. You have to really pick one of these areas, or an area that's dear to your heart, and start showing the consumer, share your secret sauce, how they can protect themselves, their families, their businesses from this particular issue. Share links, share resources, do Q&A, just like you're doing right now. And what will happen is when that person in the audience needs a lawyer or has a legal question, guess who they're going to call?
Well, I've come to you before for a few things, and I just wanted to say, when I think about distracted driving, I think about you. And I just want to say a big thanks to Mark and Brian for joining. You guys are awesome, and thank you for coming to all the different shows. It's been great. Mark was my guest last week, so it was fun. But when I think about distracted driving, I think about you. And it's actually made me look at other people that live stream and see what they do. And I do not look at it. I have stopped.
It's hard. It's hard, and I get it, and we've all done it. And I think what's important, Samantha, on this particular issue is it's not what we did yesterday or this morning. It's what we do this afternoon and tomorrow. I tell people, turn your phone off before turning your car on. That's what it comes down to. I get my inspiration from the distracted driving movement from a lawyer named Joel Feldman. He's got enddd.org. Joel's 21-year-old daughter, while crossing a crosswalk, was struck and killed by a distracted driver. It turned his life and his family's life upside down, and he's been a strong proponent of this ever since. I piggybacked on Joel's movement, and I'm honored to be able to do so. And I think what I bring is a little bit more social media savvy and live streaming savvy to the cause than what Joel's been doing. And I think between the two of us and everybody else that's involved, our community, we're raising awareness, and that's what it's all about. So, it's interesting that, once again, let's refocus back to attorney marketing, attorney branding. Whatever it might be, whatever your interest and passion is, if you can help people on social, if you can help people on live streaming, fix their problems, fix the harm in their life, that's how you can full circle the process back to your firm that will result in paying clients. It's worked really, really well for us over the years, and I think it will work for your clients, Samantha, once they figure out how to do it. Remember, it's not about me. It's about you, the audience, and you genuinely have to believe that. You genuinely have to put your secret sauce out there and help people. And if you do that, that to me is how professionals can tap into the power of social media, the power of live streaming, and do it the right way. Are you going to piss some people off? You're damn right you are. But you know what? It doesn't matter. As long as you're doing the right thing, as long as you have a conviction in your philosophy as to what's right and what's wrong, whatever the topic is that you're engaged with, whether it's distracted driving, whether it's community service, whatever it might be, a nonprofit activist, whatever it might be, do what you believe in doing. And the quote I shared in my article by Mark Twain, I think it says it all. And Mark Twain said, "Do the right thing. It will gratify some people and astonish the rest."
Yes.
That's what it's all about. I want your audience to start astonishing their audience.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I think it's the hardest, one of the hardest things for lawyers to do is to be vulnerable online or to share anything. And I just want to say hi to Brian Fanzo. He came in, and Brian also inspired me to talk about ADHD, and everything. And if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have touched a lot of different people who have actually opened up to me about it, so I don't know if there's the exact words to say to lawyers, but how to get over that hump, of actually being vulnerable. And I use you as an example, and it's something. I'm actually speaking at a conference with someone who's endorsed you, Gary Vee, on September 19th. And
at the Clio conference, right?
Yeah, at the Clio conference. So I was thinking, what's he going to say to lawyers and things? And, he's about humanist, like being more human. And what do you think would be a good thing? Or is there something that can magically make lawyers see this?
Well, it's a catch-22. Sometimes we're hired gunfighters. So somebody, when they hire me, they don't want a touchy-feely, sensitive guy. Yeah. They want someone to step up to the line, pull the weapon out of my holster, pull the trigger, and get the job done. And I get that, okay? Yeah. On social media, you can be that guy, but you also need to have empathy for who you're engaging with. You have to be sensitive to who makes up your community. Okay, what's the community philosophy? And once again, let's take this back full circle to lawyers showing their community how to protect themselves. Each community has a different philosophy, has different needs, has different types of engagement. You've got the Twitter 140 character community, which, by the way, more lawyers need to use video on Twitter. And then you've got Facebook Live, like what we're doing right now. And there are different communities with different needs. As long as you're adding value, as long as you're sincerely trying to help, as long as you have the ability to just disregard the naysayers and the people that don't get it. As Brian Fanza would say, you can't fix stupid. Never before have I realized this than over the last 18 months on social media, and especially with live streaming. But you see, Samantha, that's not your problem, and it's not my problem. It's their problem. Yeah. And so taking these platforms and using them to make society a better place, using them to help solve people's problems, using them to help other people. As soon as lawyers understand that mindset, that's how they can start properly building their practice, building their future on social media. The lawyers that jump on social media and treat this as a late night lawyer commercial, which all of us can't stand, including me, are the lawyers that will never get it. And frankly, I hope they spend less time on social and more time out on the golf course.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no, that's the thing.
And so saying all of that, Brian made a comment and brought up a good point. Having said all that, I think what's really, really cool about social media and live streaming is it gives all of us the chance to show our human side, to show the flaws that we have, to show our other passions and interests and hobbies. Okay, yes. That's what's really cool. And I think that's what connects human beings. That's what makes you, when I see you post your pictures with your kids on Instagram, as a dad, that connects us.
Yes.
Okay. And some of the things that you're doing, I did years ago when my kids were younger. And so there's a human connection there. I shared an article for Brian Kramer at Pure Matter yesterday. I wrote a guest post, and it had to do with 7 principles on becoming a superhero on social media. All of those principles, and I encourage every lawyer to read this article. Go to purematter.com. And the reason I'm sharing this is that it emphasizes showing your human side on the social media platforms. Use names, use handles, tell stories when communicating on social media. There's a right and wrong way to use social. And what worked 75 years ago for our grandparents in business will work really well for all of us today on social if you apply it correctly. You give me the microphone, and I'm not going to give it up, Samantha. So I'm going to kick it back over to you.
No. It's that's why it's great to interview you. There's so many little things that come up, and Brian mentioned about if lawyers know how to share their story, and I've worked with hundreds of lawyers, and I would say very few do know how to, but once they do, they get it, right? Like it's almost like a light goes off.
Well, let me back up a second. I will say the best storytellers I've ever watched, met, observed in my lifetime are trial lawyers, good trial lawyers in court. So the art of storytelling for trial lawyers is nothing new. People have started using that buzzword the last 4 or 5 years on social media, and that's a good thing. Storytelling is a powerful tool. You want to know what's more important in storytelling? What's more important in being able to tell a good story is being able to empower your audience to take action. You can be the best storyteller in the world, but if your audience doesn't have permission, if they don't know what they need to do next, and if they don't know that they've got the power to take the steps that you want them to take next, your great storytelling skills are for naught. And having said that, the really, really good trial lawyers that are telling great stories in these big cases that I've been involved with and that I'm watching, most of them aren't on social media. So you haven't been able to see that.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that the ability, Samantha, for you to share with your clients who are lawyers on social media to embrace the power of storytelling, to learn how to tell a good story, will take them a long ways towards achieving social media.
And you're so right, because I've attended, lots of different court cases for various reasons, and it's one of my favorite things is to watch litigation attorneys go back and forth and, share the stories. It is such a talent that they have. I mean, and if they could just, I think that's a really good comparison to use for me as well to talk to lawyers, is that, I mean, they're gifted. You're gifted when you're doing litigation. It's such a strategy, and you can tell that it is passion. And I think passion is a word that is overused, in social media as well. But I think that's a really good point about sharing their stories, and to think about it sort of like when they're in court as well. I just wanted to say thanks for Deb for coming in. Deb's amazing. I was actually on her podcast before, and we were talking about different things. So maybe one day, Deb, I can have you on the show. Going back to how lawyers can protect their online communities, it's funny. This is sort of embarrassing, but I actually used to play Heyday. I don't know if you know, it's like an app where you can grow. It's good if you don't know, but I used to play it, and you'd grow different things, and you would get to be in a neighborhood with 10 women, or it was all older women that played, which is kind of funny. And one of the women actually got really upset with me about something, and Facebooked messaged me and told me I was a coward, and started saying all these things. And she goes, "I'm a police officer." And I said, "Well, from where? Like which place?" And she started really going off, and I thought about you, and I was actually interviewing you the next day. And so it was really interesting, where I thought, I mean, she wasn't going to do anything, but I knew that there were resources that I would be able to find out the IP address, or be able to go and talk to someone like you, and to do that. And so I guess for me, it was, when does it become a real threat? Like, when should I be worried about this? And I wasn't worried about her, but then, I have had some times where with people, they're like, "Well, we're going to show up at your house." And so I think for me, it's confusing about sometimes, what do you take as a real threat or slander versus when do you just, I mean, I have no problem telling people to F off, right? I do it. But it's almost like, now that I'm more in the eye or professional eye, I have to kind of keep it a bit more professional.
Be careful. You have to be careful. I always tell people and clients, if it doesn't feel right, if you have that, if the hair in your arms is raised up, there may be something wrong. And don't take a chance, don't take a risk, okay? And if you go to streaming.lawyer and in the search box type in trolls, that will take you to the article on how to deal with internet trolls. In that article, we share links on what people can use to find out more information about other people, or to find out more information about companies. In other words, do your due diligence, do your background search, your background investigation before spending money with somebody on the internet who you don't know. And even if you see somebody all the time on live streaming, you don't know who that person is.
You don't.
And so do your due diligence and do a background check and find out exactly who you're doing business with, who wants to be your partner, who wants you to go to PayPal and send them money. Do your due diligence before clicking and sending. If you have an issue with somebody, and what's popped up, at least in my world, is it seems to me that the same issues keep popping up about the same people.
Yes.
And the sad side of things is that nobody knows who that person is unless something publicly said. And the question is, who's going to publicly say something about that person? And it's a balance. It's a challenge. This is a new frontier. This is a new territory. What's the right way to protect each other on social media? We're all still trying to figure it out. I will suggest that, once again, taking this back to how lawyers can protect their social media communities or show their communities how to protect themselves online. It comes down to resources. It comes down to information. It comes down to helping when you can help. And everything else will then fall into place. So, this is something that we're all learning together. We're all stumbling through the process. We're trying to determine what's appropriate and what's not. And I will tell you, when we first started StopDD.Today, mentioning online publicly that somebody was consistently Snapchatting while driving, at first it raised a lot of friction. And it raised friction from people that just didn't know any better. They didn't appreciate how dangerous this is. They didn't appreciate that somebody in their family could be killed in the next 15 minutes because some self-centered idiot's driving down the road updating their Snapchat. Well, the point being is you got to get over that. And I think doing the right thing offline translates to what is the right thing to do online. In other words, if I have a drunk driver or a pedophile living on the street arrested because of their criminal conduct, okay, is that the right thing to do? And my answer to you is, I think it is. And if it hurts that drunk driver's feelings, if it hurts that pedophile's feelings, because I had a police officer go to their house and investigate and eventually arrest them, is that something I need to be concerned with? All of the bad guys in jail whose feelings are hurt, is that something that I want to lay awake at night? My answer is no. I'm not going to waste my time worrying about hurting their feelings. What they need to spend their time doing is start doing the right thing. And by them doing the right thing on social media, it will be a safer community for all of us, okay? And so the lawyers that are using social to brand themselves and to build their business, one way of doing it is to empower their community with these resources. Earlier this morning, I sent Carmine Gallo an email. He's writing a new book, and he asked for my feedback on, when giving an opening statement, when picking a jury, how are we doing it differently today in light of the issues of time and attention than how we went about things 30 years ago. And it's completely different. I mean, I'm talking in 140 character, sentences. I'm using diagrams and pictures. Things are different today than they were 25 and 30 years ago. But one thing that hasn't changed is the ability to tell a good story. And Carmine has written a couple of great books that are game changers for anybody in business. One is Talk Like TED, where he actually interviewed hundreds of TED speakers, analyzed how they present themselves within 18 minutes, and then he's broken it down into what works and what doesn't work. Another book that Carmine wrote that I think is just a game changer, it's The Storyteller's Secret. And once again, if you use these approaches that Carmine shared with all of us in his books on social media, on the digital platforms, while live streaming, in doing the things that we talked about earlier in the show, that's how you're going to be effective. That's how you're going to connect with other people. That's how you're going to build rapport. It's not easy. It takes work. We're all going to stumble. We're all going to make mistakes. But here's the thing. This is the future of it. This is business now, and it's the future of business. I don't care what you do for a living. If you're not building a digital footprint or digital billboard on the social platforms, you may not have a company or business to go to in 5 years.
Well, that's
so keep that in mind.
Well, and I read a statistic that 15% of law firms don't even have websites, which was shocking to me, because that's, where I go. And one more thing I actually thought of is, I worked with a personal injury firm in Vancouver, and the managing partner said to me, would you get into a car with a drunk driver or someone who is distracted, a distracted driver? And right away I said, the distracted driver at first. And then he said, no. He goes, the distracted driver is actually 30% more likely to get into an accident, where a drunk driver is 12% more likely. And I don't know if those numbers are right, but I mean, it changed the way I perceived it.
I love the fact that you just brought that up, because what people don't realize is each year in the United States, about 290,000 people are injured by drunk drivers.
Yes.
Between 400,000 and 600,000 are injured by distracted drivers.
Yeah.
The number's 2 to 3 times. I will tell you that experts have told me the numbers are higher. They're just not being reported.
Yes.
When an investigator's police officer is investigating a crime, an accident scene, oftentimes they can't tell what happened.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Can they look at the phone and tell? Can they see?
Well, we can. We can see the records and we can figure all that out. But the true numbers between deaths and injuries by distracted driving, it's probably much higher than the numbers that are being reported by the governmental agencies. So it's just kind of an interesting situation where if you're passionate about what you're doing, this is something that hits home for me. I've just represented too many families over the years who have had loved ones either injured or killed by drunk drivers, by distracted drivers. We just filed a $25 million lawsuit involving a grandmother and granddaughter who were both killed in the vehicle. The 2 other adults in the vehicle, the mother of the grandchild and another little boy, were both severely injured in the accident, all caused by a speeding, distracted driver who then left the scene of the accident. He's now in custody, being charged with murder. And so this is a big problem. I'm not going to apologize to anybody for being as adamant, as let's just say passionate about this as I am, because I'm watching it really, really turn lives upside down. And so anyway, having said all that, lawyers need to pick the interest, the hobby, the passion. Maybe it's a lawyer that loves to fly drones. I don't know if you know any lawyers that fly drones, but let's just say it's a lawyer that let's lighten it up for a little bit. So let's say you love to fly drones, you like to race motocross, you like to ride horseback, whatever it might be. Okay. Well, you can start engaging in those social media communities, in those passion areas, and add value and help when you can. Start building relationships. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It takes time. But I got to tell you something. I engage with more people online who I consider my friends today in a week's period of time than I do with many of my neighbors on the street that I live on.
Totally.
And we have a really tight street.
Yes.
We're all friends and buddies and do things together. But this is something that, you take a step back and you realize this is today's reality. And one more thing, Samantha, regardless of what your lawyer clients are doing, they always need to keep in mind, it's always about the client. It's always about the client's experience. If you're not providing your client, your potential client, your audience with an exemplary experience, they're going to click and go someplace else. So you mentioned the law firm, the statistics about law firms not having websites. The reality is, if you're not building the right kind of digital presence that's accommodating and taking care of the client's best interest, they're going to click and go someplace else, or they're never even going to know that you exist. And once again, everything we're talking about, it's not easy, but it is necessary to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's shocking to me I've never worked with a law firm that didn't have a website, but what I usually say to lawyers that kind of makes them think about it is that social media is traditional marketing. It's just done online. It's almost like they have to think about can I say this, or ethically, what can I do? And I'm like, well, think about when you go to a networking event, think about how you speak to people. It's very similar. I mean, there are different sort of rules, but it's very similar to just traditional marketing.
I'm not in the marketing circle. I'm a full-time trial lawyer. I just enjoy social, and I've had some good results on it. I actually prefer using social to build relationships.
Oh, yeah.
I'm speaking next month in Utah at a big lawyer convention, and I'm going to and it's a marketing convention, but I'm going to talk to the lawyers about changing their mindset. Social is not about marketing. Social is about building relationships. And through relationships, I think you can get the same type of end result that a good marketer would be able to get you. So I understand what you're saying.
No, you're right.
Well, but I look at it a little bit differently. And that's why when it comes to marketing, I actually prefer to just interject the term relationship. And for me, I'm more comfortable with that. I've never been a big fan of marketing.
Well, you just actually inspired me because I'm doing this presentation for Clio, and I've been watching some TED Talks and things, and it's all about the relationship building. And I was like, well, how am I going to correlate that to marketing? But it really is about the relationships.
It is, and there are some very, very good, once again, your primary clients are lawyers, correct?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, so a lot of good lawyers out there that are providing great services for their clients, they're doing great things for their community. Guess what? They don't like to market. It's a no-no in their world for whatever reason, okay? Especially the older lawyers. And they have a lot of value to give. They can help a lot of people through their expertise, years of expertise. If you approach them and say, listen, I agree with you. Marketing is the last thing I want you to do.
Yeah.
What I would like you to do is build some new, wonderful, meaningful, long-term relationships that happen to be on the digital platforms. Is that something that you'd like to do? I guarantee you their eyes will open up because they'll get it. The light bulb will go on and they'll get what you're trying to say. And that's the biggest challenge I've noticed with a lot of my friends who are lawyers. They don't like marketing, but they love networking and building relationships. And what better way to do so 24/7 than what we're all doing right now on social media?
Yeah, that's right. And before we end the show, this is something that a lot of lawyers, this is really down to sort of like the nuts and bolts of a law firm, but you have to track all your hours, right? And there's various software systems to do it. And I worked in a law firm where they tracked business development hours, but they didn't really count social media. Do you think that managing partners and people that, are the management should actually count the social media towards their business development hours if they have them?
As far as billing clients or as far as building out the brand of their law firm?
Building out the brand.
No, I think there's a whole new way of looking at ROI, return on investment. And I think what smart businesses with smart law firms, small or large, need to do is they need to blend their daily activity with practicing law and engaging on social media. I look at it as one big blur now. When I come into the office, all of this is my day. They need to encourage, they need to train, encourage, and empower their employees, their staff members, their front office receptionist, all the way over to a senior partner next door to engage on social media the right way, okay? They need to do it the right way because social is a two-edged sword. If you go about it the right way, great. If you don't, you're going to cut your foot off, and we don't want that to happen. But no, I think actually for me and the way my mindset is, everyone needs to take a step back and chill out and encourage their staff, encourage their team members to engage on social. Don't worry about keeping track of the time and things like that. Think about what does it take to help the person that's reaching out to me? Because once again, it's all about the client. It's all about the potential client. If it takes you 5 minutes to help somebody, that's great. If it takes you an hour to help somebody, then it's going to be time well spent if you go about it the right way, because they're going to be the strongest advocate of you and your firm in the community that they live for many, many years to come. And again, though, it's a marathon and it's not a sprint.
You know what, Mitch? You've shared so much great information. And for the people that are watching this on a replay, I hope that you are taking notes, because I have been taking notes for my upcoming show. So, cool. Mitch, I just want to say thank you, and I want to say a huge thank you to Rob Hicks of Enlightened Vision Audio for doing this thing. I mean, it's amazing. Next week on September 2nd, I'm interviewing Brian Cuban, who you might know. He is the author of The Addictive Lawyer, and it'll be a fun show. So I'll be sharing it online as well. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watched.
Thanks, Samantha. It's great to be on your show. I really appreciate it. Take care.